CW here. I want to bring another one of my favorites to you guys. This is a combination rifle. It's a Savage 24. And it's a early one, but it's not a really early one. The really early ones were 22 410s. And then they became the Model 24 a little bit later. This is one that it's probably one of my first Grail guns. Grail being, something sought after and seldom achieved and type of thing. And it's a term that we've used in my circles of friends here as a firearm we've always wanted. Probably other people use as well, but I first heard it from, my group, and dates back before internet days, of course. But early on, as a child, as a kid, learning hunting was with my father and my grandfather and my uncle, my cousins. And there was a big back and forth between shotguns or 22s for squirrels. Now, we did a lot more squirrels than rabbits. Rabbits came a little bit later, when I got into high school and had a couple friends that had dogs, and or their parents, their families had dogs, beagles. And around here it's cottontails. We don't really see many snowshoes, and you don't want to run snowshoes with dogs anyway. Yeah, it doesn't work so well. Cottontails run in circles generally. Could be big, could be small, but generally they're small to medium-sized circles, and they work good with dogs. Snowshoes run long and straight and don't circle back very often, and it's hard to get your dogs back, and it takes a good dog, and you just don't hunt snowshoes with dogs. Anyway, the controversy was shotguns are better for squirrels because close proximity to houses where you're hunting, smaller lots of property, it was just safer. Plus, you're shooting up in the air at squirrels in the trees, and it's just not a good thing to be doing with projectiles. Bullets can go for miles. We've all read the boxes of bullets, and it says on every box of 22s, dangerous within 2 miles, dangerous within 1.5 miles, whatever. So everybody who hunts squirrels with a rifle at least should know that you don't skyline them. You shoot them against a tree or against a limb, or somewhere where it's going to stop the bullet after it goes through the critter or misses the critter. So that was the reason pretty much my grandfather, who was my biggest influence with squirrels, liked the shotgun better. He would use his 22 occasionally, but liked the shotgun better. And I always hovered towards the 22. My first firearm was a shotgun, but I liked Dad's 22 better, and it was a little while before I bought myself one. And early on, I learned about this, which is a combination shotgun and 22. It's a over-under, but it's a caliber and a gauge in one gun, making it, in my estimation, perfect, ideal for rabbits and squirrels. In my mind, there was none better, and it was what I had to have. Well, of course, I made this grand decision when I was probably 12 years old, when I had no money or ability to purchase such a thing, and try as I might, I couldn't get my father to buy much of anything firearms related. He was not one to be buying guns. He had the only gun I ever saw him buy was when he sold his 380 for a 38 Special Colt Diamondback, because the 380 couldn't kill rabbits. We had big gardens growing up, and we had a good-sized piece of property. And he would come home from work and get that 380 out, and he would go walk around the garden and weed and, you know, do garden work. And he was constantly shooting rabbits or woodchucks or whatever got in his garden. And that 380, he liked it a lot, but rabbits are easy to kill, and it didn't kill rabbits very well. So he sold it and bought a Diamondback 38 Special. And that was the first firearm I ever remember him buying. He never had a whole lot of firearms. You know, he had a shotgun, he had a deer rifle, he had a 22, and he had a couple of handguns, a 22 and a 380 and that 38 Special. Later on, when I grew up, started buying my own, he would buy more and he had more. But in those early days, you know, it was growing family and everything was, you know, hard fought. It was a tougher time. Monies were tighter and they went for the family, not for firearms. So we didn't buy anything. I couldn't get him to buy anything. He didn't buy anything. So I bought this probably, I think this was the first Gunbroker gun. And it was when Gunbroker was brand new. Brand new. I wasn't really into it. Computers and internet had really just started. It was pretty new. So what does that make it? Early 90s? I don't think, well, maybe it was mid 90s. I don't know, but you probably know better than me. I don't track such dates, but at the time I paid a little more than I wanted to, but at the time I had the money to spend and I had wanted it for a long time, and I looked and looked, and this was one of the nicest ones I had found, finish-wise. These see a lot of use. They weren't expensive when they were new, and they saw a lot of use, and consequently had a lot of wear. And this one here does not. That case color is pretty rich, and it will fade in the sunlight, so you know, you keep them out of the sunlight aside from when you're using them. Another common theme and problem with these was, this is the selector for your barrel. So when it's down, if you look right in there, let me zoom you in, see a little better. You look down in there, you see that little plate. Now watch it come up. There it's up, there it's down. So you put it up, and it would strike the top barrel, giving you the 22 rimfire firing pin. And when you pushed it down, it would give you the lower firing pin or the shotgun. This broke a lot. And it was such a problem for Savage that they discontinued it and put the selector on the hammer. So what you find with these older guns is often this button does nothing, and it's got a new style hammer which had a lever in it, which I'll show you in an upcoming video on another one of these that I'm going to show you guys, because I like these a lot. And I've collected a few of them through the years. And they used the newer style hammer, which has a little flip selector in it, which was much cheaper, but worked just as good, just wasn't quite as nice as these are. The firing pins are changeable. These are screws to change the firing pins out. Pretty, well, I shouldn't say that. They're not easy to work on. They are a problem inside, and they almost all have pretty heavy triggers. And it's kind of a joke in gunsmithing circles when somebody brings in a Savage 24 and wants trigger work done, because almost no gunsmiths will take it on. It's not an easy task. They are a bugger to take apart and put back together. The design of the stocks with the later guns was a problem. They tried to cheapen things up, and they omitted this little hump The stocks are all pretty much the same for all the years, all the models, with the exception of that hump. Now, some were square here, not tapered in. Some were tapered a little bit more. They all had the tang. Not all of them had this. Some had a side lever and some had a button underneath. As you go through the years, they changed. But they still pretty much all would take the same wood, with the exception of this. And even this wood is easily modified for the ones without the hump. Obviously, if you have a gun that has this hump in it, you can't use wood that doesn't, because it would leave a big hole there. But if you bought this wood, you could make it fit to pretty much all of them. The contours were close enough that you could make them all fit. Now, I believe that this has been restocked because it doesn't match the forend at all. Now, before a lot of you guys jump up and say, hey, they seldom matched, you're right. These were cheaper guns, and seldom were they cut from the same wood, and seldom did they exactly match. But this is a little more drastic than most. And being it's an older, earlier gun, these tended more to match better. So I could be wrong, but I believe that this is an aftermarket stock on here, on this gun. But with the condition of this receiver and the barrels and everything, it might not be. But there's almost no nicks or hickeys or anything with this. There's one right here, and there's a dent right here. But I mean, that's being picky. It's really pretty nice. Somebody put studs in it, and they're not centered, but it's not far off. And the toe is in really good shape. Usually these toes cracked from getting set down and rested on rocks and everything else. And this one, really, she's very, very little use, very little wear for its age. Now, the exact age, I haven't checked it. It's hard to date these. I don't even know if this has a serial number. As you know, it wasn't required until after 68. Now, this has got a model and a patent number, and that could actually be a serial number, but I haven't checked it to check the dates. And Savage had a fire, and a lot of their guns were problems for finding dates on them, and they had a letter code from 49 on for a lot of their guns, and I don't know if this applies. But we've got some more letters and numbers under here. Now we've got a K, so that could give us a date code. And we've also got a J, an FJ under here. Now I'm going to have to read, because a lot of these are proofs, or some of these are proofs. But the gun is in really good shape. These are a soldered together barrel version, as most of these early ones were. But some of the later ones were separate barrels. Now, there's no ability to regulate point of impact when your barrels are soldered together. And that was a big issue with these guns, because where the sights regulate for the barrel, top barrel, often was vastly different for the bottom. And that was probably their biggest complaint through the years. This one, again, I keep saying it's an early model, and it is. Some of the later ones lacked this bolstered ground-in rib on the bottom of the barrel. They changed it. It's a little more expensive to do it this way, so it was just a round barrel. And they got a little bit heavier. This saved a lot of weight and made it a lot more svelte, slimmer, trimmer, nicer. And this was lacking on the later barrels, because it was an increased expense. Also, a little bit later, these got grooved receivers for clamp-on scopes. So this probably predates, it obviously doesn't have it, so it predates when that was a common thing. The sights are very, very dainty. That's a very small rear blade and a very, very dainty, small front sight. So it takes pretty good eyes to see them. Now, I'm lucky with this one in that the regulation is really good. This one shoots really well. It's really accurate. And most of these are super accurate because that barrel is pretty small and skinny, but it's soldered permanently to this 410 barrel, which is a pretty hefty barrel, making this barrel super, super rigid. So there's very, very little flex or deflection or harmonics in these barrels because they're so rigid, being soldered full length like that. So generally speaking, these are really, really good shooters. And like I say, this one really is for me. I'm lucky. It doesn't see a lot of use anymore. Unfortunately, I don't have many friends with dogs anymore. You want to be careful when you snap these. Don't let it snap too hard. And I put a band on the bottom for the front sling because you can't put it on here because this is just a pull-off. But there it is. I'll get this to the range in an upcoming video for you. It's pretty, not much to see shooting it, but I'll probably, I just had an idea. Maybe I'll do a couple of these bench tops showing these different 24s that I have. And then I'll bring them all to the range and shoot them all in the same video so you can see them all fired in the same video. Because otherwise it would be like a 2-minute video of watching me load and shoot a gun, which isn't of interest to very many of you at all. You may be interested to see how well they shoot, but that's probably the extent of a range video with a gun like this. This is probably more exciting for you just looking at the gun, because this is a really, really pretty, well-kept, well-cared for version. There you go. This is a 3-inch gun, so it's not super early. I'd have to check my notes, check the internet to see when 3-inchers started, because if you remember my Beretta fold in half 410 that I bought the Chazel insert for, that one isn't labeled anything. It just says 410 because there was no such thing as anything but a 2.5-inch shell in those days. So they had come to the 2 3/4. I'm sorry, they had come to the 3-inch as a thing for these. So this is of at least that date. I'm going to have to really research and see, because now I'm interested. I'm sure that I did look for the manufacturer date. I just don't remember. Anyway, there we go. As always, I can ramble on and on and on and on and on. And some of you guys find it interesting, but I'm sure some of you wish I would just shut up. So God bless everybody. I hope you have a great day. CW out.